We made it to Thursday, and yeah, got some thumbs up. But yes, I'll do a formal introduction to myself in a minute, but I'll just tell you my wife's an elementary teacher, and I've got two elementary aged boys, and yeah, they love whenever Thursday comes around. My youngest actually calls Thursdays. Tomorrow is Friday. That's what he calls it. Tomorrow is Friday, and then we can hopefully relax a little bit. Some housekeeping notes before we get started here. If you have questions today, any question at all, there will be a form put here in the chat. Thank you. There'll be a form there in the chat, or there is a form in the chat. Fill out the form. Your folks there at A&M will be answering questions as soon as possible. Now, with that said, we had 2 sessions on Tuesday. We have 2 sessions today. So my request is just give them a little bit of grace. All right, give them some grace, and they will just answer as soon as they can. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, I think that's about all the housekeeping notes I have. Just questions, right? We want to make sure that anything that comes up is addressed. But before you start putting questions on there, let me tell you about the agenda for the next few hours. We're going to start off with the idea of course design. We have some course design considerations there from A&M, and I'm going to talk through those. Okay, we're just going to talk about those. How can we understand this? It's kind of a checklist in a way. We're going to talk about that. Then we're going to move on over to course structure, okay, with the idea of how can we leverage our modules. So if you were in my Tuesday morning session, we built some modules. If you've been in Canvas before, if you've been teaching, hopefully you've been using modules, but how can we leverage those differently? How can we organize things? How can we have a flow to our modules that makes sense for our students? So we'll talk about that. Then I'll give you a demo of group work. How can we set up groups? How can we leverage those groups? Okay, whether it's an assignment or whether it's a discussion, what can we do with groups? Then we get over to an assessment piece where we're going to build rubrics today. Then we'll align those rubrics. We're not just going to build the rubrics. We'll align them to a couple areas. Then we'll look at some quiz options, and then we will demo, or I will demo, some extra credit when it comes to assessment. And we will talk about the different ways we can apply extra credit in our Canvas course. Then we'll wrap it up with this looking ahead section and reinforce our course design, which is some information. So I'm going to give you this agenda. If you would like this agenda, I just have this as a link for you. Here you go. I'm going to put it here in the chat. So if you would like that agenda, I'm going to admit I'm a little old school and I kill a lot of trees and I print things out just so I can scribble on them. So, I've got my agenda in front of me so I can scribble on it as well. But with that said, let me introduce myself to you before we really get started. I'm Kenneth Rogers. I am a learning specialist here at Canvas. I've been with Canvas about coming up on 14 months, almost 14 months. I joined at the right time, right? There's nothing like being a trainer and joining right before a pandemic hits and everything shuts down and everyone needs training all at one time. It's been a joy to talk with a lot of people over the last year about Canvas, and I absolutely love what I do. I really love whenever we get a chance to learn from each other, I absolutely love that. I mentioned I have an elementary education teacher wife. She teaches 3rd and 5th grade spec ed here in San Antonio where we live. And I've got 2 elementary aged boys. And you can see the last bullet point here, I bleed maroon. My introduction to a learning management system started in the fall of 2004 as a student employee in the College of Education and Human Development in the distance learning department. That's where I got started. I was transferring courses from one LMS to another, and yeah, that's where my introduction started. Unfortunately, I did not graduate from A&M, but my wife is a second generation Aggie. My in-laws are class of 83. My wife is class of 06. My boys will be 32 and 36, whether they like it or not. And so these sessions have been a little bit more special for me, right? I love all of my clients, right? I genuinely do love all of my clients. But whenever I get a chance to train A&M, I trained y'all back in August and Tuesday, and then today. It is an absolute pleasure. So my wife always texts me whenever I train A&M right before, and she goes, "Good luck, honey, and gig 'em." So it's a pleasure. We'll just put it that way. Anyways, that's enough about me. Okay, let's get started today. We're going to start off, as you may remember. Let me go backwards with our course design section. Just so you know, we are going to have some hands-on activities today with, I'll throw up some slides. It'll walk you through what I expect for you to accomplish. And we'll time them. We'll go through those. But this first section, okay, is just, we're going to show you some information. And we're going to give you a resource that A&M has, and we're going to talk about that. So if you want to take a chance to log into Canvas through your Howdy portal, if you would like to log into Canvas, access your practice shell, that would be excellent, or your practice course. You can go ahead and do that while we talk about our course design considerations, this course checklist that A&M has, right? This is from the Office of Academic Innovation. I'm going to go ahead and give this to you here in the chat. I'm going to copy this, give you this direct link. Just so you know, this comes from the LMS website, the lms.tamu.edu, and I'll give you that link at the end today. But basically, all things LMS comes from lms.tamu.edu. But there's the direct link to this particular PDF that we're going to talk about now. So when it comes to Canvas, there are some things that I want to highlight here that are really important. Now, first of all, this how to use section up here at the very top, this how to use section talks about this rating system, all right? There's a 1 diamond rating, 2 diamond rating, and a 3 diamond rating. And we'll reinforce this at the end today. But really, what I think about whenever I see ratings like this is, hey, if I'm just getting started in Canvas, right, maybe I don't need to look at all of these exemplary, the 3 diamonds, right? Now, with that said, we are going to take our Canvas journey into some of those areas today, let me tell you. But right, if we're just starting out, right, let's just say, hey, look, foundational 1 diamond. What do I need to do just to get started? Okay. Now, so we can take a look at that, and this can be part of our journey, part of growth opportunities. But let's just look at some of these items. First of all, foundational. Start here as a visual representation of your course, course description, quick and easy navigation. And you know what? You all have a template available to you, right? This has been put into your practice shell, and it looks something like this for the spring course. Okay. So by using that template, you have already checked off that first foundational item. Okay. You've already checked it off. It's clean. It's consistent, right? We have buttons and links down here. Just so you know, part of your modules with this template, there is an instructor module that says, hey, this is how you edit this template. Okay. So if you needed to edit anything, provide links, it's part of that instructor module, and I'll show you where that is here in a little bit. But yeah, if you're using this template, you can already check off. Number 1, you just need to edit that page and provide in that course description, okay, or an introduction to the course. Also, my computer can catch up with me. Foundationally, our course navigation is clear and consistent. Okay. Now back to my course over here. When it comes to our course navigation, this is over here on the left, all this text that starts at home and ends at settings. Okay. We want to make sure that we are removing any distractions from our students, right? We want to make sure there's no distractions. We want to make sure they're not going to get click happy, right? And again, with this template, it's already going to be cleaned up for us. Now we can always edit this if we would like to, but I do want to point out, notice our modules are enabled. Plus things like assignments and pages and quizzes, right? These all have our visibility indicator saying that this is disabled to students. And that's because we're going to put all of our learning content in our modules. And that's because we can set up our modules to be a flow for our students. Okay, it can be a flow, and we can give them this information in a logical order as opposed to them just going to the entire assignments page or the entire pages index page and seeing everything that's in our course, right? If they see everything in our course, they may not know, that this particular page needs to be read before this particular assignment, for example. Also, class, learning information, class expectations, contact information, links and institutional resources all need to be in our course as well. We'll highlight some of these at the end as well, but let me just take a look at some of these other ones. Now, then we get into our modular section, okay? This modular section. Notice that these are all 3 diamond ratings. As I mentioned, we are going to get into some of these today. Some of these we talked about, or I talked about on Tuesday, if you were part of my introduction section. But first of all, content is chunked into modules, right? We're not just going to give them, right, one big long module. We're not going to give them all content on a page. Okay, we're going to break things up for our students, okay, inside of our modules. And again, our template is already set up for that. Modules and items within the modules have a thoughtful naming convention, and we'll talk about that today. How can we name items within our modules so that it makes sense to students, right? Instead of just saying weekly journal, how can we rename that so that it makes sense to the students inside the module itself? Text headers and indentation are being utilized. Let me show you what that looks like. If I come over here to my modules, first of all, up here at the very top, notice here's my instructor module that talks about how to edit this template. But also, as I scroll down, text headers and indentation. Notice this is part of the template, this week 1 topic title. This is a text header, weekly overview. And then all of these items are indented. So they are clearly part of weekly overview. Okay, now you can indent up to 3 levels. So if you have a subtext header, for example, you can indent that and then the content underneath it. Completion requirements, prerequisites, we're going to talk about those today. Okay, that's also giving students a flow that we expect, right? As it says here, course structure, pacing, and flow. We'll talk about that today. Let's see here. What else? Oh, accessibility. Okay. Accessibility down here at the bottom. An accommodation statement is present. And not just that it's in our course, but that it is easily located. Okay. Color. If we're going to be using color inside the rich content editor, we want to make sure that it does not convey meaning. Okay, so think of it this way. If we need something to stand out on our page, and it's very important, if we change it to red, is it going to have the same meaning to a user accessing our page if they can't see that red text? So think of it that way. Images, styles, links, audio materials, tables, right? These are all items that have their own accessibility needs. Okay. So take a look at that. And again, we'll highlight some more of these at the very end today, especially when it comes to growth opportunities and where else we may go. But I love the fact that we're able to knock out some of these 3 stars today. I mean, 3 stars, 3 diamonds today. And, you know, we can say, you know what? Yeah, this is a growth opportunity, but look what I've already accomplished. Now, in addition to A&M's checklist, okay, here at Canvas, we also have a mobile app design course evaluation checklist. And I'm going to give you the link directly to this here in the Canvas community. The Canvas community, for those of you who may not know, is a spot of over 1 million global users who help drive change to Canvas. You can join groups for areas that you may be interested in, such as a higher ed group. You can ask and answer questions for information. But this checklist, as we scroll down, notice it gives you a preview, and underneath the preview, there's an access section. When we click this access, I just want to point out some of these areas. Notice it opens up in Google Docs. You need to make a copy in your own Google Drive. And whenever we do this, there's just some things that I would like to point out. Give it a second to finish loading. Okay. Now this is similar to your diamond rating. This has a star rating, 1, 2, and 3 star. But notice text headers are included in modules, right? Hey, if we're including them for our students on the web, they're going to be utilized on mobile devices as well, okay? Chunking content, right? We want to have small bite-sized pieces, okay? Think of it this way. Students aren't going to scroll past what they can see on the page, whether it's on their mobile device or whether it's on the web. So we don't want to give them a really long page. Just break it up into multiple pages. Also, utilizing Canvas pages to present our content instead of linking to URLs or files. And that's just because, pages are native to the app itself, whereas the URLs or a file may not display quite as well. One of my favorite things to point out when it comes to mobile is this 2-star, and that's that instructions and prompts are platform neutral. Okay. And what we mean by that is instead of saying select the maroon submit button in the upper right-hand corner to submit your assignment, if we're on mobile, there's not going to be a maroon submit button in the upper right-hand corner, right? So just say submit your assignment, right? Please submit your assignment with the following guidelines, okay? Also, if there's alternatives when, alert students and provide an alternative if there's an unsupported file type, okay? And then also we're going to learn about requirements. I mentioned that earlier, but they translate over to mobile as well. Now, we can also begin to utilize features of mobile devices, okay? So when we are thinking about assignments, right? If we want students to use their mobile device, the camera, the video, etc., we can go ahead and have them utilize that device, okay? But then also mobile annotations. Students can annotate on a PDF in a mobile device. In the event you put a PDF inside the rich content editor in the assignment instructions, students can then annotate on them and submit it back to you as an attachment in a mobile device. So, this is great for, chemistry or math, or diagramming. We do see that quite a bit now. That is a great feature and one that a lot of people do love. So there are some mobile design aspects, right, that if we're doing them on web, they translate over. But I just wanted to point out all of those features. All right. Now, Let's look here. So we just talked quite a bit. I told you I was going to start off by talking. Now it's time for us to play. Okay, I want us to hop into a course, and we're going to start talking about our course structure. How can we begin to organize things for our students when it comes to modules? That's where I want to start first, is modules. We want to do an organization and a flow of our modules. So I'm going to hop on over here to my course. I'm already in my modules because I was showing you the header and the indentation, right? So if you're going to follow along with me today, as I said, we are going to have hands-on activities. So I would love for you to log into Canvas. You can log into your Howdy portal, access your Canvas course. You should have a practice course available to you, and that should have the spring template or any practice course, right? Any course you want to hop into. But I have a number of modules in here, okay? I have a lot of content brought over still from my training that I delivered Tuesday morning, okay, where we walked through modules, creating modules, duplicating modules, etc. So I've got a lot of content in here, right? Now, what we can do, first of all, is change the location of a module. Let's scroll down to the bottom here. Let's pretend this week 3 module, February 3rd. We're just going to pretend that this is the current module for our students. We're going to pretend we're in week 3 and that this is the module for our students. If we want to make everyone's lives easier, okay, our lives, our students' lives, notice how far I had to scroll down in order to find this module. What a lot of faculty members do is they just keep on rotating the active module, or the current module, I should say, the current module up to the top, okay? So we can move it up here. Now there's like 2.5 ways we can do this, okay? And I'll explain why it's like 2.5. First of all, notice with all of my modules expanded, okay, I can see these 8 dots right here, just to the left of the header, just to the left. I can select, and if I hover over those 8 dots, I get like a little compass. If I click and hold, I can drag this module up where it needs to go. But I'm going to be honest. If all of these modules are expanded, okay, if all these modules are expanded, it's going to be a pain to hold and drag and move this, right? It did the one, but then if I've got to do it, see, like it didn't even move it to the bottom for me. If I've got to move it to the top, it's got to scroll in order to get to the right spot, okay? So another way I can do this, and this is one of those halfways, right? I can still click, hold, and drag this, but I'm going to scroll up here to the top. And notice up here at the very top, we have a collapse all button. All right, we've got a collapse all button. And when we select collapse all, notice it collapses all of our modules. Now, this is a user specific setting. So we are not collapsing our modules for our students. We are just collapsing them for our view. But now that they are collapsed, notice I get my compass again when I hover over those dots. Now I can move it. Let's move it underneath the resources. Now I can move it where I want to. And it's pretty much easier. Now I can notice this little arrow right here. I can expand just the one I want to see if I want to. Keep everything else collapsed. Or if I want to, I can again expand all. Now, something else we can do to reorder our modules. Let's say we don't want to click and drag. Okay, maybe we don't want to click and drag. Over here on the far right-hand side, okay, our module header, over on the far right, we have the more options menu. The 3 vertical dots is the more options menu. I'll refer to it a number of times today, but we're going to select the More Options menu, and notice we can say Move Module, right? We can say Move Module, and now we can choose where we want it. So if we just want it at the very top of our page, we can say Move, or we can say after the Student Experience Resources module, okay? And when we say Move, there it is. Student Experience Resources, week 3, module, February 3rd. So that is another way we can do it. That's why I said there's like 2.5. And we can move it back, right? At the bottom, move, and we'll move it back to the bottom. So again, we have these dots, and we can click, hold, and drag. Okay, click, hold, and drag. Or we can collapse everything, click, hold, and drag where we want it. Or we have the More Options, and we can say Move Module. Now notice my modules are collapsed. Okay, my modules are collapsed, and I still have the Move Module. Right, Move Module after Student Experience Resources, move, and there it goes. Okay, so that's how we can begin to organize our modules, right? Modifying the location, whether it's for us to make our lives easier so we're not scrolling through. If we're doing weekly modules and we've got 15 or 16 modules, we don't want to scroll through everything. We can just keep on moving it to the top. Or if it's to engage with our students in a different way, so that way they have access to the most recent content at the top, so they're not having to hunt, right? That's one thing we can do. Another thing we can do in order to organize our, let me find the right module, our content, is we can begin to provide a numerical system, or even an alphabetical system, I guess you could say, to our module titles. Okay, so I said earlier, right, when we were looking at the checklist, right, when we say thoughtful naming convention, I said, instead of just saying weekly journal inside of a weekly module, how else can we name that, right? Is that going to be week 2 assignment journal reflection, right? A little bit more detail for a student. Or can we take this a step further, right? Let's change A&M content page. Now, I'm not going to select the page, select edit, change the title, select save, right? I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to take A&M content page, come over here to the More Options menu, and say edit, okay? And for A&M content page, I'm going to say 1.1, okay? And then I'm going to say update. Notice now A&M content pages, this should have been 2.1. Sorry, let me change that because this is week 2. 2.1. 2.1 A&M content page. Now I can do the same thing on my week 2 assignment. Let's edit that. Now this one will be 2.2. All right, this one will be 2.2. So now this gives them the information. Notice wrap up is already 2.3. 2.1, 2.2, 2.3. So this title, maybe if presentation and lecture, actually let's do this. Maybe let's increase the indent on content page. Maybe this will be 1.1, 1.2, 1.2.a, right? Maybe this content page is part of presentation and lecture. Okay, so it's all about organizing our content for our students. Let me show you an example. Come on, you can do it. There we go. So this is where we started, is over here on the left. What is the staff? Weekly reading, refresher, weekly quiz, right? And then we went to 2.1, what is the staff? 2.2, weekly reading, 2.3. Now, let me tell you 2 reasons why I love this system. First of all, my team lead was a teacher, and when she was teaching, she would have students come up and say, Miss Amundsen, I'm having problems in my module with weekly reading. Even though this says weekly reading part 2 of the textbook, okay, they would just say weekly reading. Now, she couldn't support them, right? Then it was a back and forth. What module are you in, right? Where are you? What is the full title? How can I help you? As soon as she started saying 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, they started coming up and saying, Ms. Amundsen, I'm having problems with 2.2. Okay. They would leave off weekly reading part 2 of the textbook and just say 2.2. So that's one reason. Okay. That's one reason why, right? It's all about supporting students, whether they're going elsewhere for support, or if they're coming to you for support. Now, another reason, and this is probably my favorite reason, is because it gives students a flow. Now they're not coming, what is the staff, weekly quiz, elements of the staff, weekly reading, refresher, right? They're not jumping around. Now it's saying, this is the order in which I expect you to do these things, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's clearly labeled. This is the order. Now we're going to look at requirements and prerequisites here in a minute, and we can force that order. But if we're not going to use those tools with just this numbering system, we can go ahead and, I guess you could say, suggest to students, hey, this is the order in which is the flow that I think your content makes sense. So with that said, again, remember, come to your module, select the more options, and say edit, and just change it, 1.1. And then this one will be edit, 1.2. And now this one will be 1.2.a because it's part of the first one. Okay. And now, like I said, we are not just editing the module. Notice this page is updated as well. Okay. The page is updated as well. It's not just for the modules. Okay. So this is your first activity. I would love for you to hop into your course. Play with the location of your modules. Remember, you have, like I said, 2.5 ways to do this. See which one's going to work best for you whenever you start in your academic semester. See which one's going to work best for you. Then work on your naming conventions, okay? Be thinking about what's going to make sense for you and your students. Notice, I put on here modify naming conventions as necessary because I just said what's going to make sense for you and your students. If 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, etc. does not work for you and your students, that's fine. Okay. Either think about how can we rename our work, right? Week 2 journal reflection. So it really calls it out. This is your journal reflection for this week. Right? How can we be thinking about naming our items as opposed to just weekly journal reflection? Right? How can we be thinking about that? Let's give you about 4 minutes for this. I have a timer here. I change the time, let it count down. So we'll give you a chance just to play in your practice course. Play with these items, and then we'll reconvene here in a minute. Still on modules, okay? We'll still be on modules here in a second, but I will mute my microphone while you work. All right, now that we have a naming convention, maybe modules where we need them, let's talk about, we may have the flow with our numbers, but how can we lock students out of modules? How can we provide a flow that we expect other than numbering system, right? How can we do that? And we do that with the locking of modules for dates and times, with prerequisites, which is saying this module doesn't open until the module beforehand is complete, and requirements, which is how we define completion of a module. Let me show you in my training course over here, just some things in my modules. Let me scroll down. Notice this module, for example, says mark as done, view, mark as done, and contribute. Okay, so on each of these items on this page, student has to mark it as done. There's actually a button that they have to select to say, yeah, I read this page and I'm done with it. About the instructor page, they just have to view it. Okay, that's all they have to do. View it for a couple of seconds, and then it's considered completed. Mark as done on this page, and then contribute. Notice on a discussion post, we can have them contribute to the actual post as well. Okay. Now on this next module, mark as done on this one, and I'm skipping some items. Okay. We do not have to have requirements on everything in a module. Okay. Mark as done, submit. Okay. On this assignment, I don't care what kind of score you get. I don't care, right, for marking it as done. I just need you to submit the assignment. Just turn it in. That's all I need you to do. All right. But again, notice I'm skipping items along the way. Is that it? Okay, no, submit to the assignment, submit to a quiz. There we go. All right. So we can do one item in a module. We can do all items in a module. Maybe if we do, right, like here, maybe they have to do the overview and to-do list to get the presentation and lecture and content pages to open. I don't know. It all depends on what's best for you. Okay, but let's first look at locking the module. Okay, well, let's lock a module. Let me just pick a random one. Let's do this one. So to find our lock and our prerequisites and our requirements, it's going to be in our more options menu again. Okay, so for the entire module, right, this gray bar, the entire module, we're looking for the more options menu, and we're going to say edit. So for week 2 module, January 25th, we say lock until. Now, when we say lock until, students will have access to this content. Okay, they'll be able to see it. Let me rephrase that. They'll be able to see what's in the module, but they cannot click on it. All right, so we're going to lock this until today at 10 o'clock a.m. Okay, so here in 18 minutes, this will open up. Okay, so it's locked. So if we want to keep everybody on the same page, if we have weekly modules and we don't want them to skip ahead, maybe we're opening it up Sunday night, maybe we're opening it up Monday morning, maybe if it's a Tuesday, Thursday class, maybe we're opening it up Tuesday before class. It's up to you. There's flexibility there. We're going to lock, for me, I'm going to lock this until today at 10. And we'll say update module, okay? So now this one is locked. Now I'm going to come back up here, and on this one, I'm going to do some requirements. Okay, some requirements. I'm going to come up and I'm going to select the more options, and I'm going to say edit. All right, I'm going to say edit. And this time I'm going to do requirements on the module. Remember, this is how we are going to define that our module is going to be complete. Okay, this is that view, mark as done, submit. What do our students have to do on these individual items for this module to be done? Okay, now we can do this without prerequisites. Okay, and we'll talk about prerequisites again in a second. We can do it without prerequisites, right? We can just have a module that we have to say is considered done, or we can do it with both. Now, with requirements, in order to add requirements for our students, okay, we're going to select this plus add requirement button. Now, when we do that, we have options here. First of all, Let's talk about this one down here. Students must complete one of these requirements. Notice we have the plus add requirement button. We can add requirements for all of these items in our module, okay? And if we just want one of these items to be done, right? If they just need to do one of them. So maybe if this is an end of semester, right? We just have an end of semester checklist and we need them to take one of 2 surveys, right? In order for this module to be complete, take one of these 2 surveys. Now, we can say, hey, complete one of these items, and we would add in our multiple items below, and then they just have to do one. But my favorite is they must complete all of these items, right? All the requirements we're going to put down below, they have to do all of them, okay? But students must move through sequential order is optional. If we check this box, they have to go in order, okay? So if week 1 has a requirement, and then if week 1 overview has a requirement, and week 1 individual assignment has a requirement, week 1 will open and everything else will be locked until week 1 overview's requirement is met. Then this will open, and this will open, and then these will be locked, okay? So we'll see what that looks like. Now, if they don't have to move through sequential order and they can jump around the module just to finish up the requirements, you don't have to check this, okay? But I'm gonna do sequential order just so you can see what that looks like, because I'm all about flow. I'm all about saying to my students, this is what I expect. This is how it should go, right? We need to do our overview. We need to do our presentation and lecture. Okay, we need to do these items before we get our activities. We have to do our activities before we get our wrap up. Okay, so we're going to do that. Now, when it comes to everything on here, okay, in order to select an item, I'm just going to look here. Here's my item, week 1 overview and to-do list. And it's already selected. Notice it's broken up by content type, not necessarily the order in which everything is in the module, but on a page, okay, this is a page, we can say view the item. Again, remember, that is just viewing something for a couple of minutes. I mean, not minutes, a couple of seconds. Mark as done. They will get a button that they have to say, this is complete, and then contribute to the page. Okay, pages can be considered wiki pages in a setting where students can edit pages as well. So if we want them to actually put in their information on a page, we can do that as well. But I'm going to do mark as done. Okay, then I'm going to skip these 2 because I want them to mark this one as done, right? Get the overview. Then they'll get access to the presentation. They'll get access to the content page, and then we're going to get to the individual assignment, okay? So when we get to the individual assignment, that is going to, we have options for assignments. View the item, mark it as done, right? Same thing. Or submit, right? We saw that earlier. You have to just submit it or score at least. Now it tells you how many points this is out of. This assignment has not been set up yet. So that's why it's out of 0 points. But keep in mind, on an assignment, if you say score at least, it depends upon you actually assessing them, especially if we're doing sequential order. If they haven't been assessed yet, they cannot move on. I'm going to do view the item, okay? Discussion, let me show you it. Contribute, submit, score, view. Okay, here's my quiz. View the item, submit the assignment, and score at least. Now with quizzes, if we do score at least, right? I don't mind quizzes with score at least if it's a low stakes quiz with multiple attempts and they're automatically graded, right? If we're using question types that are automatically graded by Canvas, then they have multiple attempts to move on, and it's automatically graded. So if they get that threshold, they can go ahead and move on. But I'm going to say view the item for the quiz. And then wrap up and looking ahead, add another requirement. We will say mark as done. So I want to know they marked as done on this one, marked as done on that one. Yes, I read these. I'm marking them as done. After I have my requirements in place, I'm going to say update module. Okay. So I'm going to say update my module. And now notice mark as done, view, mark as done. So the next thing after requirements is a prerequisite. So I can go to this next module. Okay, this next module, and I can give it a prerequisite of this module. So week 2 title can have a prerequisite saying you have to complete all of the items in this first module. So if I click the more options and say edit, notice I can say prerequisite and select week 1 topic title. And now when I say update module, it tells me, hey, this has a prerequisite. So this one, oops, didn't mean to collapse that. This one will be locked until this item is complete. Okay. Now you can do a prerequisite in connection with a lock. Okay. And so if you want them to finish week 1 before they get this one, but this one doesn't open until Monday, right? You can do that as well. So yeah, even though you finish this one on Wednesday, this one opened, doesn't mean you can jump ahead. All right. Let's see what this looks like as a student. I might need to reset my student view. Let's see. Oh, I've done some of these, but let me reset my student view just so you know when you're in student view, you have 2 buttons when you in the bottom right hand corner. Leave student view will just leave student view. Reset student view wipes out everything you've done. Okay. So because I've been in here already, notice my modules, right, will unlock. Okay. Will unlock. And this one should be locked as well because I've already been in here before. It's giving me access. So we're going to reset my student view. We're going to wipe everything out. And take me back to my home page. And now when I go back to my modules, everything should be locked. There we go. So this one down here, notice is going to unlock in 9 minutes. Okay. So I'll get access to this in 9 minutes. This one will unlock whenever this one is done. Okay. So here's where the to-do list, the mark as done is, right? On this to-do list, notice up here at the very top, this is their mark as done button. When I select mark as done, it should open up to the assignment for me. There we go. Notice I marked as done. I get a check mark in the module telling me, hey, I completed this, opened up the presentation lecture, opened up the content page, and opened up the assignment. Okay. Because these do not have requirements. So it opened up all the way down. Now I need to view this one just for a couple of seconds. I'm going to watch my little spinny wheel. When it's done, I'm going to go back to my modules. Now discussions opened up and my quiz opened up. All right. Again, quiz, just going to view for a couple of seconds. Let my spinning wheel stop. Go back to modules. And we can use our next arrow, next and previous buttons as well. But I just like to do this so that way we can see visually how it's going. Okay. So everything is unlocked. This one's unlocked. As soon as I mark this one as done, this one will open up. Okay. So we'll do wrap up looking ahead. We'll mark as done. We'll do modules. Now, let's see here. There we go. My prerequisites of week 1 topic title were met. So now I have week 2 title. Okay. Now this one will stay locked for the next 6 to 7 minutes. All right. Okay. Now, I would love for you to play and do this as well. All right. I would love for you to lock your module, add a prerequisite to the module, and add a requirement to the module. All right. So play with some of those settings, right? Play with just some of those settings. See what it's like. Okay. See what it's like in order to have a flow to your modules, and set things up that way. Let's give you 5 to 6 minutes in order to play with all of those features. Just a little bit over 5, in order to play with everything. And I'll show you one other thing, and then we'll take a break here in a minute. But yeah, I'll give you just a few minutes in order to complete this activity. All right. In your modules, I'm going to do this in my demo course. Notice at the very top of the page, you have a View Progress button. When we select View Progress, this will show you where students stand in terms of accessing their content. Okay, so for example, Jeffrey Baker here, notice, just so you know, Canvas overview and resources, it says complete up here at the very top. Well, there are no requirements. Okay, so when there are no requirements, it just says it's complete. Now, I don't view this as a way of checking in on students, making sure they're doing their content. I view this as a way of providing support, especially in large enrollment courses, right? If a student were to come to you and say, "Hey, I can't access specific content, specific module," and you know you have requirements and prerequisites set up, you just scroll through the list, select the student, and see, right? Well, maybe this one's locked. Okay, maybe this one's locked, and you know this one has these items that they have to complete. Okay, so you can say, "Hey, you're welcome begin here module. You haven't finished everything, so go." That's why your module 1 is locked. Okay, that's why it's locked. So go ahead and go finish your welcome begin here module, and then you'll get access to your content. Okay, so that's just a great way, to see about providing support to your students, and just, yeah, checking it, not checking it on them, right? Especially in large enrollment classes, that would be too much in order to do that. I'm well aware. Okay, let's see where we're at in our agenda, because I don't believe I said this at the very beginning, but the hope is to take a break around the top of each hour today. So we did course design, right? We looked at the checklist. I provided that to you. We also talked about the mobile design checklist. We talked about some things as to where we're at, some things the templates providing to us, and then some things we would be doing today. Some of those 3 diamond ratings, for example, to really enhance things. Then we got into course structure in terms of leveraging our modules, organization, and flow being the big ones. Okay, we've still got group work and assessment left to do, and then wrapping it up with the course design considerations again. So with that said, let's take a little bit of a break. I've got 10:02. I like nice round numbers, right? Instead of saying, let's take a 5-minute break and come back at 10:07. Let's take an 8-minute break, 7 to 8-minute break. And let's come back at 10:10. Okay. We'll come back at 10:10. Just so you know, I am going to pause my screen share for just a minute. With resetting my student view, it resets something that I need for later in our training. So I'm going to pause my screen share for just a second, do what I need to do in student view, and then I will bring back my screen share, and you can see the agenda again for the next 7 minutes, but we'll see you all back here at 10:10. All righty. Hopefully that was a great chance to stretch your legs just a little bit. All right. Now we just did leveraging modules, right? We talked about organization and flow. Okay, especially when it comes to prerequisites and requirements and locking. I will admit I do enjoy a good lock on a module. But now let's talk about our group work. Okay, now this is going to be a demonstration, and I'll explain why here in a little bit. But we're going to talk about how can we build group sets and groups, and then how can we leverage those groups with assignments and with discussions. Now, the reason why this is going to be a demo is because it does depend upon there being students involved in your course. And while it could be great to do it in a real academic course where you have students, um, students will see when they are in a group and they'll be notified. So we probably don't want to alarm anybody at this point, and we don't want them to see their group space yet. So just sit back and relax for a little bit and digest this information when it comes to group work. So I'm going to actually do this in my test course. Okay. We were over here earlier when we looked at the progress for students in their modules. And the reason why I'm doing it in my test course is because I have students in here as opposed to there being students, not being students in my A&M training course. Now, we can create group sets and groups on the fly when we create group assignments and when we create group discussions. And I'm going to explain the difference between a group set and a group here in a second. But what I like to do is I like to set these up ahead of time before I even get to that space. Okay. So I'm going to select people. Okay. People here in my course navigation. And when we go to people, notice up here at the very top, okay, this Canvas training project, as we create group sets, okay, as we create group sets, we will get our group sets at the very top, okay? So Canvas training project is a group set. Canvas training project 1, project 2, project 3, these are my groups, okay? So let me select this little arrow so we can see these are my students. So students live in groups. Groups live in a group set. Okay. Now we can manage student enrollments. We can move them around. So let's see here. Let's pretend Jeffrey and Frank are roommates and we don't want them to be in the same group, right? We can notice here's my 8 dots, the same 8 dots that we saw in our modules. Click, hold, and drag, and you can move any of these students around. Okay. Now I'm going to create a group set. And we're going to start from scratch. And then I'm going to have Canvas do the heavy lifting for me and create my groups. But I do want to point out, notice I can create groups even after groups created and move students around. Maybe I find that 3 is not enough and I need 4 groups and I can manually manage these enrollments, right? That possibility is up to me, okay? But let's create a group set. Remember, students live in groups. Groups live in group sets. So a group set is the umbrella that holds everything. So up here in the upper right is our plus group set button. Now, I'm just going to call this one Canvas Training Course Project 1 Group. Okay, wait, let's call this Project. We'll call it, no, I'll do Project 1. Okay. Now, let me tell you why I'm naming it this way. Canvas training course. This is the name of my course. Notice up here, right? Canvas TC, you can't see that, but Canvas training course is the name of my course. So this could be Chem 101, Math 142, okay? Canvas training course, right? Or business math, right? Whichever one. Put in the name of your course. Then I'm putting in what is it they're going to be working on. Is this project 1, right? For the semester, this is the first project. Is this assignment 6? Is this weekly journals group, right? What is it? Tell them what it is. And I'm putting the word group on here because it's going to number it for me. And I want them to see, you know what? I'm even going to take this a step further. I'm going to do space hyphen, and it's going to say group 1, group 2, group 3. Okay. So after we've named it, okay, and we'll see how it puts in the numbers here in a second. After we've named it, we can allow self sign up. Okay. Allow self sign up. Now, that's just, notice when we do this, we can either create the groups now. Right? How many groups do we need? We're going to let them do self sign up, but I want 4 groups and limit it to 3 members. I've got 11 students in my group, so in my course, so that's perfect, right? You can only have 3 students in 3 members in each group, so we can do that. Now, if we have multiple sections, we can require the students to be in the same section if we want to. We can also say down here at the bottom, I'll create the groups later. Okay, I'll manually do it. Right, split students into groups with 3 students per group, right? Then I'll have 3, 3, 3, and 2. Or, no, I know how many groups I need, right? This is a project, and I've got 4 groups. Right? I need 4 groups. We're going to have 4 presentations, etc. So we're going to split up into 4 groups, and Canvas will do the heavy lifting, right? It'll do the heavy lifting for me, and it'll move each of these students into their own groups. Now notice I also have the require students to be in the same section if I need that. Then also when it comes to leadership, I can automatically assign a student group leader. Really, the only thing that they can do is rename their group. Okay, there's not a lot of stuff that they can do, and I'll show you the group space here in a little bit, but there's not a lot that they can do. But we can also manually do this. I'll show you that also. When I say save, creates the group, and it's going to process. It's going to take just a little bit of time. This little graph and this little bar is going to move. Actually, it didn't move. It just went faster than normal. So like I said, with 4 groups, I'm going to have 3, 3, 3, and 2. Now I can look at each of these just like on my other one, and I can make sure that everything's okay and be like, no, you know what? Hilda and Georgia, they always work together. Hilda, you're going to go up to group 1. Okay. Now we can collapse these again. Now, and then notice because it numbers the groups for me, right? It says 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's why I put the group, right? Because then it says to them group 1, group 2, group 3. And another reason why I put Canvas training course, right? The name of my course. Theoretically, hypothetically, let's say students are in another course and we just put group or we put project group, okay? And the other teacher does the same thing. Well, how are they going to know which group they need to go to? Okay. Just trying to make everyone's life a little easier. Now, I mentioned we can manually change group leaders. Here for Frank Wood, let me select the more options for his name over here on the far right. When we select it, I can remove them, or I can set as leader. Okay. Right, so when we say set as leader, notice it calls it out for me very easily. And Frank will now be a leader and can change the name of the group if he would like to. But there's not a lot more you can do. Now, let's say a student adds late. They will be listed over here on the far left. Okay. Over here under unassigned students, they will be listed here. And we would just click, hold, and drag and move them over to the appropriate group. Same thing goes if we were manually creating our groups. Students would be listed here. and then we would just move them to their respective groups. Okay. So that's how we can create groups. Now let me show you how we can leverage our groups. Let me go to assignments really quick. I'm just going to create a new assignment up here in the upper right-hand corner. I'm just going to give it a name really quick, and we're going to call this one, sample group assignment. Okay. We could put some instructions, right? Points, group, right? Everything. We would change all of this as needed. But notice this is a group assignment. This is where we change this, right? By default, this is deselected unless we've selected it on a previous assignment. But we would select that. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we can create groups on the fly. So we would just say, hey, new group category, put in all this information, right? But I think it's easier just to create them beforehand and then select our group that we want to use, okay? Now, let me point out something here. With group assignments, okay, with group assignments, one student will submit on behalf of the entire group, okay? You don't need individual students submitting each submission, okay? So let's say that this is a written paper and that everyone's doing their own piece and one person's compiling it. Whoever's doing that compilation will submit on behalf of the entire group. Okay. Now, if someone in the group submits, right, it'll be a submission on top of that original submission. So students can theoretically submit on top of each other and just keep on submitting on top of each other. But you want one student to submit on behalf of the entire group. Also, by default, this is unchecked. Assign grades to each student individually. Okay. By default, you assess one student, right? Whoever's submitted that, or you look at the group and you look at the individual submission, you assess the one student, and then everybody gets the same grade. That's the default. But let's say there's an aspect to the grade that needs to be assessed individually to each student. You would select this checkbox to assign grades to each student individually. Then at that point, you can go ahead and assess each student based upon your rubric, based upon the needs of the individual assignment. At the bottom, you have your assigned to area, right, where you put in your due date, say it's due today, and your availability window, right, from and until. When can they start to submit it? How long after the due date do they have until they can submit it late, right? Remember, you can always differentiate your due dates with the plus add button. By section, right? Give each section a different due date or give each student a different due date. Now, after you are done, remember, save is draft state. Okay? Save is draft state. I'm not ready for students. I'm still working on this. Save is going to be draft state. Save and publish means I'm ready for my students. So we're going to say save and publish. And now students will be able to submit to this assignment. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the idea of group discussions. Okay, let's see here. Where's one? Where's my geology review? Here it is. So here's a geology review. Notice it's dependent upon that Canvas training project. Okay, that other group set that I had. So we can go ahead and, as the instructor now, we can see, hey, this is a group discussion. Each group has its own conversation, and here are the ones that I have access to. So I can just select these links and go to the individual discussions. But how do I set this up? If I go to the discussion page, we will say project, I think it was project 1 discussion. I think that's what I put in my my group was project 1. So give them the prompt, give them the directions. Maybe this is a place for them to just provide feedback to each other and engage. We'll look at the group space here in a minute, but maybe this is just a means to dialogue. You can, even with group discussions, make them graded. So you can make this a graded discussion if you would like to. You can allow threaded replies, replying to each other within the discussion. So having mini conversations, basically. All the discussion settings are there as normal, but we can say this is a group discussion. And same thing, new group category or select my group. Okay, we can just select the group, and when we say save and publish, here it is. Notice now I've got all 4 of my groups. Now let's look at and see what the student will see. Come in here to my instance. As the student, notice over here on the far left, in the global navigation, that bar on the far left, the global navigation, now that I'm in a group, I have this groups button. Okay, so when I go to the groups, here are the 2 groups that I am a part of. There's that Canvas training project. And then here is that project 1, I'm part of group 4. See the difference in the 2, just kind of how this calls it out a little bit better, That's group 4, Just calls it out a little bit better. We can select my group 4, and they get basically a mini group. A mini course within Canvas, There's no assessment functionalities here. There is no quizzes or assignments, but they have pages and announcements, files. They can begin to organize all of their content. As the group leader, here's my edit group, I can change the group name if I would like to. But all student members, if I click on people here, I can see who are my members in here, who are my teachers and TAs, But I can post an announcement if I want to, okay? As I mentioned, I can create a page, okay? I can go ahead and create this page. And then we as group members can interact on this page, okay? Modify information. Maybe we're going to just brainstorm on something, okay? Also discussions. Notice I have a discussion created for me already. Yes, I can create my own discussion if I need to engage with my teammate in this case. But here is that discussion, okay? The one that was just created. Now inside my course here, going to Canvas training course, over here on the far right, I do have my course groups. So in the event, students are in multiple groups that are just called project, and they aren't sure what's what, they can always come to their course homepage and see what groups they are in their groups. Now on the sample group assignment, notice whenever I come in here to submit this, I can say, hey, my comments that I might be putting on this assignment, I can send a comment to just the instructor. Or if this is for the whole group, hey, I'm submitting on behalf of everybody. Please don't resubmit. Okay. Everybody in the group can get the comment as well. Okay. So those options are available. We'll just leave this. But now you as the instructor, okay, how can you access those pages, You want to make sure that they're engaging with each other and collaborating. If we come in here to people, and if we go into our group set, for any of these groups, notice the more options menu on the far right-hand side. When we select the more options menu, we can say visit group homepage. And when we go to the group homepage, that's exactly where we just were as the student. So we can come in, we can view the announcements, we can view any discussions and pages that they might be doing or any files that they might have uploaded, okay? But we can also use this switch group option right here. So we're not having to go back to our course, going back to the people in the group set. If we need to go check on group one, let's go check on group one. And then this button right here, or this link, will take us back to our course homepage. All right, so that is an overview of the group space, right? How can we build groups? How can we leverage groups, right? We created a group set, groups within the group set, and then our students live inside the groups, right? Just remember, group sets are the big umbrella, right? Group sets are the big umbrella. And then groups live inside the group sets, and then students live inside the groups. And then with an assignment, remember that one student submits on behalf of everybody. And then by default, we assess once and everybody gets the same grade, but we can override that if we need to, okay? We talked about discussions and then we showed you the group space. Just think of it as a mini Canvas course without assessment functionalities. Speaking of assessments, let's move on, okay? Let's talk about rubrics. I'm going to be honest. I love rubrics. I absolutely love them. I think it's a great way, one, to engage with our students, to let them know expectations. Okay, I think that it's just excellent. Two, it can make your life easier. All right. So in our course, okay, in our course here, in our course navigation, we are going to select rubrics. Now I've got a number of rubrics in here, one of which I created on Tuesday, okay? But then I also have this Hamlet plot summary. Now, when it comes to this Hamlet plot summary, that's a mouthful. This one really is a discussion post, okay? For a discussion post. So I like to think of my rubrics as being reusable, okay? Notice this performance review rubric. If we select it, it's pretty lengthy, right? But it's really like talking about, hey, overall claim about this play is present, evaluation of the plot, evaluation of thought, evaluation of acting. Okay, so it's a little bit, right? The verbiage here, a performance review rubric, can be used multiple times throughout a semester. Hamlet plot summary, that sounds like it's only being used for one assignment, whereas the criteria that was in it is pretty generic for any kind of discussion post. So we could have called this Hamlet plot summary discussion post, right? Rubric. So just keep in mind, I like to reuse my rubrics. I think it's beneficial, and I think it's great to do that. Now, what we can do though, we can add rubrics. Now, we're going to see here in a minute, we can also add rubrics on individual assignments without this feature, but I like to think about adding my rubrics now and then aligning them, okay? Instead of going to each individual assignment, creating them for each individual assignment. Because if I'm going to be reusing them, I want to create it once and use it in multiple places, okay? So we're going to select this plus add rubric button. Again, I'm in rubrics in my course navigation, and we're going to select plus add rubric. Now, it comes up and it asks for a title. And it says some rubric, okay? So we're just going to call this one, lab rubric. I don't know. We'll just, for the sake of today, I don't know. For some reason, lab's on my mind. And we give it a title. That way we can reuse it, right? Some rubric doesn't mean a lot, but lab rubric does mean something a little bit more to me. Underneath here, right, this is where we have our criteria, our rating, and our points. For criteria, first of all, it just says description of criterion, which doesn't tell me how I'm evaluating the student, and it doesn't tell the student how they're going to be evaluated or after they've been assessed what they were evaluated on. Okay. So in order to change this, okay, we are going to select this edit pencil. And notice we get this pop-up that asks where we can change the description of the criterion. So we'll just say hypothesis is present. I don't know. And then we would put in a long description. Okay. Long descriptions are optional, but I do think that it just provides additional information and feedback. Okay. Just as much information as we can give students as to what's expected, I think is better. And then we'll say update. Now for ratings, all right, for ratings, we have a couple of options here. We can leave it at 5 points and 0 points. Okay. It's a little bit wide of a spread for full marks and no marks. But also, what if we have, right, hypothesis is present and it needs to be more than 5 points, right? Maybe this is a 10-point rating. We're just going to select this edit pencil right here, right? By selecting this edit pencil, we're going to change our edit score to 10 points. Full marks, rating description, right? Giving as much information as we can as to what you need to do in order to receive those 10 points, okay? Update. Now again, 10 points to 0 points is a very wide spread, okay? We want to split that in half, right? We're going to split that in half, and we're going to put in a 5-point mark. So we're going to select this little plus button. And notice when we select plus, it automatically divides it in half for me. It gives me 5 point, and we'll say half marks. Again, give it a good rating description. We'll say update. Now 10 to 5, 5 to 0, still a pretty wide spread. We can divide it in half again. So 10 divided by 5 divided by 2, sorry. So 10 minus 5 is 5. Divide that by 2, it's 2.5. So 7.5, we're going to round up to 8. Okay. We're going to say below full marks. We'll say update rating. And then we'll do this one as well, right? It's going to round up to 3 points, and we'll say below half marks. Okay. So we can really build this out, be as granular as we need to be. But this is only one level of evaluation. Maybe we need additional criteria. Okay. So we are going to select this plus criterion button. And notice we have two options here. New criterion is just selecting, just putting in those 5 and 0 points. Okay, so it's just going to put in a new criterion. You're going to name it, and it's going to do full marks at 5, no marks at 0, and then you have to edit it. But if you've done a lot of work, like I just did on hypothesis is present, you put in descriptions, what's expected, change the titles, everything, you can duplicate a criteria. Okay, so we're going to duplicate this one. We're going to change this one, and we'll say conclusion is present. Okay, we'll say update. All right, and now I have the both of them in place. Now I can change this also to be arranged. Notice underneath my criteria, I have a little checkbox to arrange. So if I want to assess students and give them, instead of just saying 10, 8, 5, 3, if I want to give them points within that, right, they can score between a 10 and an 8 for full marks, between an 8 and a 5 for below full marks, okay? So you can do a range as well if you would like to. You can do additional criterion as well. Do new, and we'll say, oh, let's say, oh, I don't know. I'm drawing a blank here. Hypothesis, conclusion, and scientific something. I don't know. We'll just leave it at that. I'm drawing a blank. We'll say create, and notice because I did new, it did it as just 5 point. We can edit this. Maybe this is 2 points, right? It's just going to be something smaller, right? We're just correct scientific notations, maybe. Then we're just going to give them 2 points for that. So now there's going to be a 22-point rubric. We can build this out as far as we need to go. Now, when we are done with our rubric, creating our rubric, we are going to say create rubric down here at the very bottom. Okay? Create rubric. So what we did, we went to rubrics, we selected plus add rubric. We modified where there's those edit pencils. If I click the edit pencil, there's the edit pencil to change your criterion description, modify your ratings. You can add criterion, duplicate, or add new. It is up to you. Okay. When you're done, select create rubric and add this to your course. Okay. Here in a minute, we'll also get into the idea of extra credit. And I'll show you how we can do that. Actually, no, let's do this now. Let's just edit this. We're going to talk in depth at the end today about extra credit, but I do have it on my agenda to talk about extra credit while we talk about rubrics. My favorite way to talk about, to do extra credit is on rubrics. So I'm actually going to edit this. We're going to say extra credit. Okay. So now let's say the assignment itself is worth 20 points. Okay. The assignment's going to be worth 20 points. We can give them extra credit of, let's give them just 1 point. 2 points seems a lot on a 20 point. They can get 1 point extra credit, right? We will put in the description as to what it is. Then when we assess the students, they can either get it or not. Okay, it's a point or not. And we'll show you how we can use this for grading in a minute and make our lives really easy. But we can call out to students, hey, you can get extra credit on this lab assignment. So all you need to do is put in extra credit, give it how many points the assignment is worth for the extra credit, and call it out. Okay, I'll update my rubric, and then we'll adjust that. Okay. So I want you to create a rubric though. All right. I want you to create a rubric. Now, if you're going to align this to, if you want to play with extra credit and you're going to align it to an assignment that is 25 points, create a 25-point rubric and then add in your extra credit assignment or criteria. Okay. Add in your extra credit criteria. And then if not, don't worry about extra credit. Okay. And you can make your rubric however many points you want, and we'll show you what happens. Okay. Oops, I went the wrong way. Let's see here, create a rubric. So this is your activity. Create a rubric and add at least 2 criteria with descriptions. Okay, at least 2. Adjust those ratings, select create rubric. Remember, make your life easier and just duplicate the rubric, right? No need to reinvent the wheel. If you are working a lot on some of those criteria, just duplicate, okay? We'll give you, let's do 5 minutes, because really we just need about, we'll give you a little bit over 5 minutes. We really just need 2 criteria on here. If you have time, add extra criteria. But take a look at the rubric inside your course. And again, we will talk about extra credit a little bit more in depth after we get into the quiz information today. Alrighty. Now, we created a rubric. What do we do with it? All right, that's the question. We've got to align it to an assignment. So I'm going to come in here to my assignments, and I'm going to find my assignment, this one right here, I believe. And notice at the bottom, okay, we have a plus rubric button. Okay, now when we say plus rubric, this might look familiar. The only difference is that you also have some settings at the bottom. This is what I said earlier. Yes, you can come in here and you can create a rubric on the fly. Yes, you'll be able to reuse it later. I think it's best to just go ahead and create these rubrics that we know we're going to use throughout the semester. And then notice this button right here. Find a rubric. This will list the courses you are in. Okay. And we can find the appropriate rubric. Let me find one. Let's do, we'll just do this one, right? My A&M rubric, 25 points. Okay. I know this is the one I didn't create, but we're still going to use it. All right. This is the one I created on Tuesday. We're going to say use this rubric. Now, whenever we use it, whenever we attach it, notice it just attaches it and we lose all those settings down below. Well, what we can do now is we can say edit this rubric. Now, if we are, okay, right here, using it in more than one place, okay, if we make changes to the rubric, it will result in a new rubric, okay? So we can't edit a rubric that's already being utilized, right? We don't want to change the game after we've already attached it. So if we say edit the rubric, and then we actually change it, okay, if we actually change it, then it'll result in a new rubric being attached. So what we're going to do, though, I wanted to show you these settings down below, right? Now, it'll say, I'll write freeform comments, okay? So notice, I'll write freeform comments. It takes away the rating scales. You give them the points. You provide them comments, right? You type them in. Remove points from the rubric, right? We're just going to tell them this is how you were assessed. Okay. If you're using outcomes, you can say, hey, don't post the outcomes to the Learning Mastery Gradebook. This last one, hide the score total. Oops, right, screen adjusted, hide the score total, right? We don't want the total. We can do that as well. But we can also say, and this is my favorite, use this rubric for assignment grading. Okay, use this rubric for assignment grading. Whenever we say to use this rubric for assignment grading, okay, our points on our assignment and our points on our rubric need to match. Okay, they need to match. If they don't, we're going to get an error message. Okay, we'll get an error message that'll say, hey, these points don't match. If you leave it different, this is the percentage you'll get. Do you want to continue, right? Do you want to change it or leave it different? So we'll say update rubric. Mine match, so it works. Okay, let me show you on this other assignment over here. Let me find it. I believe it's this one. Okay, notice I have this sample rubric attached with extra credit for 11 points, and my assignment points are worth 10. So if I edit this, okay, use this rubric for assignment grading, I'll say update rubric, and here's that error message. Leaving the assignment's total points at 10 and the rubrics at 11 will result in a maximal possible score of 110% for student submissions, okay? So if I say change it, the rubric stays at 11 and the assignment is changed to 11. Okay, so it'll go from 10 to 11 if I say change. But because I have extra credit on my rubric, right? This is extra credit. I'm fine with them getting 110%. Okay, I'm fine with giving them an extra point, right? 1 point out of 10 points. I'm going to say leave different. So if you don't have extra credit and you are using it for grading, make sure they match. If you do have extra credit and you're using it for grading, and we'll look and see what that looks like here in a little bit, go ahead and use this. Now, the benefit of having a rubric with extra credit on here, notice the criteria, right? This description of criterion 2, right? This totals 10 points. okay, which is my assignment. So this is where I'm assessing the student. This, if they don't do it, it doesn't hurt them. But if they do it, it helps them. Okay. So that's aligning to an assignment. Okay. So again, if we go to an assignment, let me find another one. We'll just grab a random assignment. Select the plus rubric button. Select the find a rubric. Find your course. Select your rubric. So use this rubric. Then if you need to edit those settings, right? Remember, you have your edit pencil. And we'll say, okay, change your settings as needed. Okay, change your settings as needed. And then say update rubric. All right. I want you to align your rubric to an assignment. Okay, align your rubric to an assignment. So go to a Canvas assignment, select plus rubric, find a rubric, edit the rubric. Remember the edit pencil to adjust any settings as needed. Select update rubric. Remember, if you have extra credit and your point values don't match, say leave them different. Okay, but look at the error message. Make sure they're not going to get like a 220%. Right? We don't want that to happen. So look at the percentages. You may need to adjust assignment settings and the point values and whatnot. It does call it out to make sure you are aware of any percentages that may happen. We'll give you about 4 minutes to do this. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. There we go. A little bit over 4 minutes. And then we'll come back and I'll show you a couple of other areas where you can align. And then we will take a break after we talk about the other areas for alignment. Let me just demo to you really quick where else we can align our rubrics. I mentioned earlier with that Hamlin plot summary rubric that it was a discussion-based rubric. Let me come up here to my discussions. Here is that Hamlet plot summary. Let me show you what that looks like when it is aligned. If we select the more options menu up here in the upper right, notice it says show rubric, and we can see that it's been aligned. Okay, so that's seeing it after it's been aligned. But if we come back to discussions, let's see here, we'll just do, let's try this, introduce yourself. Select the more options again, and now we have add rubric. Okay, again, we can build it out, right? We can build it and reuse it later. But because we did all the work ahead of time, all we need to do is say find a rubric, select our course. I'll do my Hamlet plot summary, scroll down and say use this rubric. And now it's been attached. Now I can again select this edit pencil. We'll say okay because it's being utilized. And I can change these settings if I need to. Okay. Now that is attaching it to a discussion post. Again, when you're viewing the actual discussion, more options in the upper right-hand corner and saying add rubric. Okay. We can also add rubrics to quizzes. So quizzes may have an essay question, right, that we want students to fill in an answer, and we want to assess them with a rubric on that. So if I come in here to a quiz in here, select here, again, notice the more options menu and say show rubric. We have the add a rubric button here as well. Same thing, okay? Find a rubric. Where is it? Find the rubric, right? And then this one would be, maybe my sample rubric. Okay, and we'll say use this rubric, and then we'll attach it for that one essay question. Okay, so we can go ahead and utilize this for discussion posts and setting expectations. We can utilize this for essay questions and letting them know what's going to be expected as well. I said this on the other day whenever I did this session. I'm a very black and white person, so maybe that's just why I absolutely love rubrics. Just tell me what's expected of me and I'll do it. And yeah, so that is rubrics. That's aligning rubrics. That's where we can align them, everything. Let's take a look at our agenda again, see where we're at. Course design, we talked about modules, group work, we did a demo, and now we did rubrics, right? We introduced also the extra credit. We started with rubrics. Okay, we already introduced some of that, but there's some other ways we can do extra credit in our course as well. But before we even get to extra credit, we're going to do some quiz options. Okay, so we're going to do that next. And then, so we'll, in our home stretch here, okay, we'll do quiz options, what we can do and how we can engage with students in different ways with quizzes, extra credit with a demo, and then we will wrap it up again with some course design information. I have 11:05. Let's take a 5-minute break. Told you I liked even numbers, or round numbers rather. So it's 11:05. Let's meet back at 11:10. All right, we'll see you in just a second. All righty, so we just talked about rubrics. We talked about creating rubrics in the rubrics space, and we talked about aligning rubrics. We aligned one together in assignments, and I showed you how to do quizzes and discussions. But speaking of quizzes, let's move on to some quiz options. We're going to look at question groups right now. And how can we shuffle our questions and randomize questions inside of our quizzes? Okay, that's where we're going to head. And before I move there, I do want to point out that it's my understanding that A&M does have a couple of tools available to you to support academic integrity when it comes to Canvas quizzes. Okay, there are a couple of Canvas partners that you do have available to you, one of which is called HonorLock and the other one is called Respondus. I will share with you the LMS website again here at the end, as I mentioned earlier. And so I will share that out with you. But yeah, reach out to your innovation team there just to see any information on HonorLock and Respondus, again, just to support academic integrity. But let's hop into the Canvas quiz, okay? I'm going to hop into one I've already created. Going to go into quizzes in my course navigation. And I'm going to do this quiz, the Persuaders, okay? Now, what I'm going to do is I am actually going to edit this quiz, okay? This is an existing quiz. This is a quiz students have not completed yet, okay? So I want to do this before they take the assessment, all right? Where we build our quiz, right? The actual questions is under the questions tab. Don't forget that. So we're going to go to the questions tab. Now, right now, the way that this is created, we are going to have students go in this order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? They're going to get question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4, and then this essay question at the very end. Okay, so that's the order in which this is going to flow for the students. Now, maybe I want students, right? This one right here, this one's like a fill in the blank kind of a question, or a short answer rather. Maybe I want to take these 3 questions, right, that are at 1 point apiece. And maybe I want to randomize these 3. So students will get this question, then we can randomize these 3. We'll shuffle the order, and then they'll get this question, okay? We do that with a question group, all right? So we're going to say new question group, and I'm going to call this one Persuaders group, okay? And I'm going to say right here where it says pick however many questions at however many points per question. I have 3 questions, okay? I have 3 questions. So I'm going to say pick 3 questions at 1 point per question. All right. I want to say create group, and it's going to put it down here at the bottom. But I'm going to notice my 8 dots that we've seen throughout the morning. I'm going to click, hold, and drag and move this where I want it. Okay. Now that I have my group created, okay, I'm just going to move these 3 questions that I want shuffled into that group, okay? And I know that it says this group set to pick more questions when are available, just because my page needs to refresh. Not a big deal, because I know 3 questions are in here, picking 3 questions, it's perfect. Now, this is set, right? So they're going to get this question first, right? They're going to answer it. Then these 3 are going to shuffle. Okay, it's going to shuffle these 3 in a different order, and then they'll get the essay question at the very end. That's the order in which it's going to go. But I can take this a step further. What if I want them to get one of these questions, right? Randomly pull one of these questions from this group. I'm going to edit my group, okay? Here's my edit pencil, okay? I'm going to say, let's do pick one question, and we'll do 3 points just so it stays at a 15-point quiz, because 2 points, 10 points. We'll pick one question at 3 points, and we'll say update group. Now, when a student gets to this assessment, they will get this first question, okay? Then out of these 3 questions, they will get one of them. I don't know which one they're going to get. It's going to randomly pull one of these 3 questions. And then after they get that one question and they answer it, then they will get this essay question at the very end. Okay? So that's how we can use question groups in order to shuffle our questions or randomly pull our questions. Okay, let me show you again in another quiz that I have. I just want to do it one more time. My A&M sample quiz. I'm going to edit this. Going to go, right? So went to quizzes, selected the quiz, selected the edit button. Going to click on the questions tab. And now I have an essay question at the end. I have a true, false, and a multiple choice question, right? Now, what I suggest, maybe having a question group for your true, false, question group for your multiple choice. Then they can have different point values. Maybe have multiple essay questions that they get, right? And then they can randomly pull from there. But we're just going to do a new question group. And I'm going to say pick one question at 5 points. Okay, we would name it, right? Group, right? We would give it a good name. So we're going to say pick one question at 5 points per question, and we're going to say create group. I did new question group. We would give it a name. How many questions are we going to pull? How many points is each question going to be worth? Now I choose where I want my group to go, these 8 dots. I reorder things. And now I'm going to put my multiple choice and my true false question in here. So I'm just going to hold and drag. So now in this assessment, students are just going to get one of these questions, just one. And then they're going to get their essay question. Okay? So they'll get one of these, then they'll get their essay. All right? So that is utilizing question groups in order to have a randomization and shuffling of questions on your assessments. So I would love for you to play with question groups now. Let's find the appropriate slide. I want you to go into your course and open a previously created quiz. Okay? Just open up something you previously created. Then create a question group. Remember, it's at the very bottom of the page. So we're going to go to the quiz, edit the quiz, click on the questions tab, click the plus question group at the very bottom, move those questions in the group, and make sure your settings are as they need to be on the group. Remember, you can always hit that edit pencil and adjust those settings if you need to, okay? Let's give you, about 5 minutes to do this. And then we'll talk a little bit more about quizzes, and then we'll hop into extra credit, and then we'll wrap it up today. All right, back to my settings, to my details tab. I want to talk about this assign to area. All right. when we come to assign 2, remember, due date. This is when I expect students to complete this quiz, okay? This is when I expect things to be done. Available from and until. This is the window that it is open, okay? So this means starting yesterday, they could have started to submit to this assignment. They have until today at the end of the day to complete it. I'm not taking late work. Notice this date and time is the same date and time as the until date. This means they cannot submit it late, okay? If the until date is the same as the due date, there is no option for late work. But if I wanted to give them a chance for late work, maybe they get an extra day. Now, after this due date and until the until date, it'll be marked as late. I'll know it's late. They'll know it's late. Everyone will know it's late. Okay. After the until date, it is considered missing and they can no longer complete this assessment. Okay. Now we can differentiate these due dates. Notice right now it says it's assigned to everybody in my course, no matter the section, no matter anything, it's assigned to everybody. Let me show you how to differentiate. Let me show you in my course over here. Let me find a quiz. Let's do, so I had one Tuesday. I might not have saved. Yeah. Let's just do this one. So when we edit this, okay, and we do these due dates, right? So let's change these dates to something that makes sense for this year. January 14th, February, we'll come up here to January. I can't believe it's 2021, starting yesterday, and then we'll give them a day. Oops, too far. We'll give them a day to the 15th, okay? Right now it's assigned to everybody. I can do a couple of things here. Maybe I have a student who has had an absence, right? They have an excused absence. I'm going to select this plus add button, okay? And then I can select that individual student and I can give them a brand new due date. Maybe they need the 21st, okay? They get an extra week. I'm going to give them the same start date and I'm still going to give them an extra day. Okay, notice up here I gave them an extra day. Here I'm going to give them an extra day. I'm going to give them the same start date because I'm not going to penalize them if they turn it in early. But because of whatever reason, whatever happened, that they get an extra week in order to complete this, they get a new due date. Alternatively, okay, let's just take out the whole assign to. Let's say I have multiple sections in my course. I've got a large enrollment course and I have multiple sections. I'm going to, on this everyone, I'm going to select the X and I'm going to say section 1. Maybe section 1 is a Tuesday, Thursday course, right? And that's why it's due on Thursday. I'm going to select plus add. And now we're going to say section 2. In section 2, maybe this is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and it's going to be due on Friday. They start on Thursday and they have until Saturday. I don't know. Now notice section 1 has a date and section 2 has a date. Okay, so that's how you can begin to differentiate based upon student need, based upon sections. I mean, I can still come in here and still say a student also. Okay, put in a student. All right, so we can go ahead and differentiate based upon our course needs. Now, this is all about due dates, okay? Due dates and availability windows. When is it due? When can they access this from? All right. But what if we need an accommodation? Okay. Let's just save this. We'll continue. It's just telling me that some of my sections aren't assigned, and that's okay. All right. Now, if we need an accommodation for a student, on the quiz page itself, notice here's my edit button, right? So I'm not in the edit view. This is just on the landing page of the quiz. Notice I have a moderate this quiz link or button up here. And this is where we can see our accommodations for our students. Notice this one has multiple attempts. So Timothy Alexander has had one attempt and he has one attempt left. Okay. Georgia Johnston has 3 attempts remaining. Okay. Frank Wood is taking it 3 times, has 0 attempts remaining. Okay. Now, on any of these students, so Rebecca Bradley, for example, maybe Rebecca needs an accommodation. I can select this edit pencil on the far right-hand side. Okay, so for an individual student, select the edit pencil and notice it tells you everybody already gets 2 attempts. How many extra attempts does this student get? This is a timed assessment and everyone already gets 10 minutes. How many extra time on the assessment does the student get? This doesn't affect those due dates that we just set when we differentiated things. This is actual time in the assessment itself, okay? So if they have an accommodation and they get 10 minutes extra on all assessments, just give them 10 minutes. If it's time and a half, you have to do the math. So 10 minutes, time and a half, you get 15 minutes, okay? So you can go ahead and put in the amount of extra time they get. And if they're locked out, right, for those dates, for example, or if something has happened and you need to unlock a quiz for someone, you can manually unlock it for them. And then you would just select save. Now, on the flip side, let's say I have some students who have the same accommodation need. I don't have to click the edit pencil for all of them. Click this checkbox, okay? This checkbox right here. And notice whenever I do that, I get a link at the bottom that says change extensions for 4 selected students. And now I get the exact same window where I can provide those accommodation needs, attempts, time, or even unlock as well for individual students. Put in the information and select save. So again, moderate the quiz, right? We go to quizzes, let it load, we select the quiz, we say moderate the quiz, and then we can modify that information, okay? Quizzes, right? Moderate the quiz is all about accommodation, okay? All about accommodations. Whereas those dates we were looking at is all about availability and due dates, okay? So keep that in mind. Let's switch gears here and let's talk about extra credit. Let me save this real quick. Let's come back over here. I want to show you how, first of all, how do we assess a student with a rubric and how an extra credit rubric, right? We talked earlier about how to set up a rubric with extra credit, right? It's just an extra item on that rubric itself. We also can, right, then we use it for grading and we leave it different, okay? I'm going to enter speed grader for this assignment. Notice my student has submitted, and there's a couple things we can do here. Now, I can, right, let me just give me some real estate here. I'm just clicking on those dots and giving me some extra real estate on my screen here. Notice I have a view rubric button. So whether I'm using this for grading or not, okay, whether I'm using this for grading or not, I will have the ability to see the rubric. So if this is used for grading, as I select however they do on here and select save, it'll update the score. Okay, it'll update it for me. Alternatively, if I'm not using this for grading, but it's just a means of providing feedback to students for engagement purposes, okay, we can go ahead and provide that information, okay? Provide that information, and then students will see the rubric, but then I still need to give them a score, okay? So to use it for grading, because this one is set up to use for grading, I'm going to give them the scores. So without extra credit, okay, because this is a 10-point assignment, the student would get an 8, okay? But because they did great and they're getting their full marks on the extra credit, they're actually going to get a 9. Notice this does say 9 out of 11. That's on the rubric, not on the assignment. So when I say save, notice here is their grade out of 10. Okay. So that's how we can use a rubric for grading. So if we select that checkbox, remember I told you we can use rubrics to make our lives easier. We can just select the rating, select save, and give them the points. Now, something else we can do, right? For extra credit, you can just give points above, right? Notice, I mean, my rubric's out of 11. This is out of 10, but for extra credit, you can also, here in SpeedGrader, just give them extra points. That's another way we can do extra credit, okay? I'm gonna come back over here to my course, right? If you do that, I would suggest you tell students you are giving them extra points. But other ways we can give extra credit, and I call those fudge points, by the way. Also, just so you know, on quizzes, for example, there is actually a fudge point option at the bottom where you can give positive or negative fudge points, okay? So on a quiz, you have positive or negative fudge points at the very bottom in SpeedGrader. Other ways where we can give extra credit. Now, under assignments, one thing that some folks do is if we create a new assignment, okay, right, we can make this worth 0 points, right? And a no submission. I talked at length in my session on Tuesday morning about what a no submission is, right? This is something that's not tangible. So this can be something like extra credit, right? Because what we just saw is that we can give points above what Canvas is expecting, right? We can give points above. So if this is going to be a, if they can get 5 points, for example, on their grade, if it's 0 points, it's not going to hurt anybody if they don't do it. But if we give someone 5 points, it'll help them. Okay. So make it a no submission, then go in and manually give them their grades in the grade book. Okay. Cancel out of this. Also, we have groups inside of the assignments index page. Notice I have mine set up right now as assignments, journals and reflections, discussions, and quizzes, right? These are our categories of how we are organizing our content, right? And then whenever we create graded content, such as a graded discussion or a quiz or an assignment, we decide which category or bucket they fall under. But we can go ahead and say, hey, there's an extra credit group, okay? To create groups, we will select this plus group button and we're just going to call it extra credit. And we'll say save and we'll put it down here at the bottom. Now, I'm going to show you here in a second how to weight your groups. But if you don't weight your groups, so if your entire course is point-based, okay? If your entire course is point-based and you are not doing percentages on individual groups, such as quizzes are worth 25% of my grade, discussions are worth 10%, right? If you're just doing collectively point values and you're not going to weight these groups, do an extra credit group and then do 0-point assignments inside the group. Okay? So put your 0-point assignments inside your extra credit group, and you can then give the points as needed. All right? But we can also, if we are weighting our course, so if we are saying assignments are worth 30%, and calculate all of this information in one spot and weight it against the total. Okay. We can weight our assignment groups by going to more options and saying assignment groups weight and saying weight final grade based on assignment groups. And then we just put in the percentages. So maybe, and this is going to be a running total for me. So maybe this is going to be worth 25 and quizzes will be worth 40. And then this will be worth 15. And that's a lot for discussions. We'll just say 20 just to make it 100, right? Then extra credit, maybe extra credit's going to be worth 5% of their grade. Okay. So if we are weighting our groups, we can weight our assignment groups, have an extra credit group that is worth 5% of their grade, and we'll say save. Now notice, gives you the percentages up here in the upper right. But when we weight our grades, okay, when we weight our grades, this extra credit group, the assignments we put in there have to have a numerical value attached to them, okay? They cannot be 0-point assignments, all right? Only do 0-point assignments in the extra credit group if you're doing a point-based grading system. If you are weighting your groups, right, put in your extra credit assignments, make sure there is a point value associated with it. So maybe if, we'll just grab one of these at the bottom. Maybe my A&M sample quiz. Maybe that's an extra credit assignment. I'm just going to click, hold, and drag, and I'll move it down. Now, if students do this, right, and they, however many points they get, it'll be 5% of their total. And it'll just help them out a little bit. Okay? So we can do it on a rubric, right? And call it out. If you do X, Y, or Z, I'll give you a point or two. We can go into SpeedGrader or in the gradebook and give them an extra point or two and just override and go over and above. On a quiz, okay? I know I don't have a quiz to show you, but just gotta trust me. In SpeedGrader, at the very bottom, when we're looking at that, we do have fudge points where you can give positive or negative fudge points. Or we can have an extra credit group, right? Point-based, they can be 0-point assignments. And then we can go ahead and just give students points over and above. And then if we are weighting our grades, right, as I'm doing here, make sure that our extra credit assignments have a numerical value, right, such as 20 points attached to them. And then anything that students do in here will be weighted at 5% of their total. Okay. So that's how we can begin to do extra credit within Canvas. As we wrap it up, I want to talk again about these course design considerations. One thing I do want to point out, foundationally, links, files, videos, and any external URLs are active and working, okay? If we're just starting out in Canvas, there's a good chance information we're putting into our course will be working just fine, right? We're just starting out, it's great. But as we go through our Canvas journey, maybe if we started in the fall, we're copying content over to the spring, maybe we're in spring and next spring we're gonna copy content over, items can break, right? Websites can be taken down. We want to make sure things still work. So we actually have a link validator built into the course. And it's under settings. And it's over here on the right. It says validate links in content. And if it's your first time you start link validation. Okay, you say start link validation. Let me show you what it looks like after it runs. It breaks it up by type. So assignments, discussions, quizzes, pages, right? It breaks it up and tells you, right? Is this an image, for example? Is this a link? Okay. And then in order to fix these, you need to go into each of those individual items and fix those areas. Now, after you've fixed everything, restart link validation and make sure things are good to go. Also, when it comes to interaction, student to student, to foster a sense of community, discussions, constructive collaboration, groups, right? Then also student teacher interaction, right? Providing quality feedback. Think about Speed Grader, okay? Think about the different ways of media. I think of Rubrics also for quality feedback, letting them know what's expected and then how they did. And then student content, right? Engaging content and resources. And then I love this, right? Welcome discussion to build a sense of community. The last 30 hours of my undergrad were all online. And this was before the idea of online learning being community and engaging was really a thing. And I really wish I would have known my peers, right? And known my instructors. Talked a lot about modules. I love this detailed instructions. But I like to take instructions a step further, especially for anyone who may be new to Canvas, and also providing support information. Okay. This is how you get support. If you need help, this is where you can go in the Canvas community for the student guides to see this is how you submit an assignment, for example, or how you post to a discussion board. Also, variety of assessments are being used. Okay. Right, we talked about a number of things today, but also group assignments, right? Engaging students and having them engage with each other, right? Not just the same old writing an essay and doing it 4 times in the semester, right? Having a little a variety there for your students, increasing the engagement. Okay, let's see here. We talked about accessibility this morning at the very beginning, and then I'll expand upon it in my session this afternoon for just sort of the getting started with Canvas. But just remember, images need to be appropriately have alt text. We're chunking our content with paragraph styles and heading styles, as opposed to just one long page. And also audio materials. Keep in mind, transcripts or closed captioning need to be on there as well. Okay, so that's just some places. Now, I believe I mentioned it this morning. When I view this document, right, there's a lot on here. It's not a means of saying, oh, I've got to do all this right now. No, it's not a means of making sure everything on this is checked off. It's a means of, this is what I've done. Where can I go? Okay. It's a growth opportunity document. I'm big on growth mindset and just saying, hey, yeah, this is great, but how can I grow? And what else can I do? So that's how I view a document like this, and just saying, great start for me, but what else on here can or should I do? Promised you a couple of links today. One of those is the LMS website. Okay. First of all, it's lms.tamu.edu. It's a great spot for any kind of training or support need that you may have there at A&M. I suggest you bookmark it, access it often, get all of your resources from your team there. It's a great spot. And then also the checklist that we just looked at. We looked at the beginning. Make sure I got the right link here. Looked at the beginning and recapped it here at the end. Want to make sure you have that direct PDF link. Also, again, remember, it's a growth document. It's just a means of saying, hey, where can I go in my Canvas journey? But with that, I will say to you all, thank you so much. You all have been much appreciated. I know it's not always fun to sit through professional development all morning, so I do appreciate you a lot. And with that, I will also say Thanks and gig 'em.
To learn more, please visit lms.tamu.edu or email us at aihelp@tamu.edu. Thank you.